So welcome back to my channel. Today again I'm standing in the middle of bushes because I want to talk about this particular shrub. Now this shrub is called the Brazilian Red Cloak, and the beautiful thing about it, it's a tropical evergreen and it has these amazing red flowers. Now within the flowers, because they're bracts, and within the bracts is this little white flower that attracts all these pollinators. The color of the bush and the color of this flower does attract a lot of pollinators. So what I'd like to do is let's look at it and learn how to propagate it. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. The thing about the Brazilian Red Cloak shrub is that it actually grows in warm weather. In places like Florida or California, you will see it in people's garden. It is a tropical plant, and basically it does need that warmth to be able to flower and flourish. Now, what sort of light does it want? It really likes a bright, indirect light or sun. Now the thing is about it is that the beautiful thing is that it can also tolerate shade, and even in a shade position it will flower all year around. So it is one of those sort of plants that you should have in your garden, or even in cooler climates, you can grow it in a pot and nurture it. And again, in summer, bring it out and get this abundance of flowers. Now, the optimum temperature for this plant is 18 degrees Celsius to about 27 degrees Celsius. So in places like Florida, California, it is the ideal temperature. So do buy yourself one. However, in the Northern Hemisphere, if you did want to have this plant, it is advisable to actually have it in a container, which you could bring out in the summer season, and then during the winter season, after the first frost, bring it in and start your overwinter preparation, which is basically storing it either in a greenhouse or in a garage or in the basement. And then as soon as spring comes, you will see those buds, and then you start slowly introducing it in your garden again. And by the time spring and summer comes, you'll get a multitude of these beautiful flowers, which are these bracts. And within it, you get this lovely white flower, which attracts a lot of pollinators. Now, what sort of soil does it want? Again, as with always, a nice well-draining soil, and it is a tropical plant. So in a situation that you may have clay soil or something that is not so porous in terms of well-draining, do add a bit of compost in it, or just any sort of organic matter, so that at least the water does drain through. And again, in a pot, what sort of soil would you use? I would use exactly the same, but always make sure that you do have the holes underneath the pot, because it has to be free draining but retaining moisture. Now, watering. So what do you do with watering? Again, if you do have it in a container, do your finger test. Make sure that, you put your finger in there at least an inch and a half. If it's dry, do water it. However, it does like moist soil. So again, is that depending on the soil that you're mixing, make sure you have organic stuff that will actually retain moisture, as peat moss and all these sort of properties. So in the end, it is free draining. However, it does hold the moisture for the plant. If you do have it as an outside plant, what you need to do is that during the growing season, which is spring and summer, do water it, because it does flower all the time. And in order to stimulate and feed those flowers, you need to actually water it more during the blooming season. Now, my beautiful Brazilian Red Cloak shrub, before we've had episodes where I did showcase it as it was blooming, and it was amazing. But what has happened to it is that it desperately needs to be pruned, because even as I stare at it now, I find it's a bit leggy. And so what has happened is that the blooms of the flowers are not doing so well. So what I do intend to do is actually prune it down so it becomes bushier and not have it at the height that it is as I stare at it. It's almost up to roof level because I don't get to see the plant. So what I intend to do is actually prune it just to give it a bit more body, and so I can have at least the bracts or the flowers just jutting out at eye level, and that's my new project. Another thing is if you do have your bushy Brazilian red cloak shrub, is do go inside and do prune it a bit, because what happens also is that you could have a really bushy shrub, but you need that air circulation. And once you get that air circulation, what happens is it does prevent things like fungal attacks and mealybugs and all these bugs that do love that humidity, and they terrorize your plant. So always make sure, although it could be bushier, but have a situation that is not overtly bushy, so you do have that circulation to prevent any sort of infestation of bugs or fungal disease. Now, in terms of propagation, how do you propagate this plant? First of all, I need to tell you it is a fast-growing shrub. So when you do a propagation, it does work very quickly, and it always does have success. And here I've done 2 propagation using just a stem propagation, although I do understand you can do seeds, but I've never really seen the seeds. But I always find seed propagation for myself always takes a long time. I'm a very impatient person. But with stem propagation in soil, it does work really fast. And look at these are beautiful. Now, what you need to do with the stem propagation, as we've always learned, is you pick your stem, your soft cutting, and then simply remove the leaves. And in this case, I will only, let me use my shears, I will actually leave just those 2, and I might even cut it because it does get floppy, just like that. So at least we do have the leaves to feed the plant. Basically, this is a soft cutting, and all you need to do is make sure your nodes are there. And I'm going to put 2 nodes under the soil and just simply put it in. So that's 1 cutting. Now I had prepared this one again, and I'm going to make, I'd like to make a lot. So this one again, I have a node here, but it's better that I work with this one here. So all I'm going to do is simply submerge the soil, the node in the soil, and there you are. Once you've done a cutting like this, as I mentioned earlier, is that it is a fast growing and the propagation does work fast. Now I'm going to put that one aside and then just show you these ones I'd actually done about 2 months ago, 2-3 months ago, and I'd kept it in my greenhouse waiting to do this episode. But once again, is that what I'm going to do is actually open it, and then, because I need to put it in a bigger pot, and later I am going to introduce it in the garden. So I'm just going to empty it in here. And this is from 2-3 months ago, so my rooting should be actually quite developed and ready for a big pot. Now look at that rooting. Oh my gosh. The rooting is actually amazing. And I've got rooting, I'm just going to do this, I've got rooting from every single node, even the second node that I submerged in the soil. Now, as you see, is that from every single node that I did submerge, I've got amazing rooting. And this is how fast this, this particular plant does propagate. And with this, I'm just going to put it in a pot, a bigger pot, because it is full. And then from there, I'm going to see what to do with it. But I may just even keep it in a pot and keep pinching it so that it gets bushier, and then wait for my flowers to pop up. So let me just put this one back and put it aside. And I always get so curious to see how my propagations work. And with this one, as you've seen here, I'm already getting baby leaves on the side. On every single node, I'm getting these baby leaves. And sometimes if you leave it long enough, you may even get a flower bud appearing. But again, once a flower bud does appear, do snip it off, because we want all the energy to be in this plant. So I'm just going to tip this one over quickly. And then we have a look. And again, a very strong rooting and ready to go into a bigger pot. Look at that. And this is 3 months. But again, look at that. And really lovely rooting. It's all nice and white. It's fluffy. And oh my gosh, it is amazing. So that is, again, my rooting. So let me put these here. My table's got all messy. And so now we know the program with our Brazilian Red Cloak is, first of all, what you need to do is take your stem cutting. I would take about 4 inches to 6 inches, like these are about 4 inches, and do submerge the nodes in the soil. The soil that I used here is actually organic soil, so it has compost, it has a bit of potting soil, it has a bit of sand also. I just wanted it to be very sort of aerated so those roots can actually go down, and it has been a success. Look at that. And what you do is transfer this into a bigger pot, and then as it grows into a bigger pot, and slowly introduce it in your garden. To immediately introduce the plant in your garden, you'll actually damage the leaves, and they are quite flimsy, these leaves, because you'll scorch them. And also remember that it is a plant that does like bright indirect sun, and it can do well in shade. So as you sort of introduce it in the garden, I would actually put it in a shaded or partial shade area, and as it develops, you slowly introduce it into the spot that you wanted. So thank you so much, fellow gardeners. Do get yourself a Brazilian Red Cloak plant, and do look for it, because it is a bit difficult to find it, but it's great that I always find that to introduce new plants also gives other gardeners a chance to see what is in the market and what to search for. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like and share. Press that subscription button and notification button, and do introduce us to your friends. We have so much fun filming and also spreading the word of plants. And don't forget, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and do send me a comment or DM me. I'm always there. I've had people DM me, and we've worked through their plant issue, which is really exciting. And don't forget that we do launch every Thursday, and have a happy summer, and do go and look for this plant. Bye, happy gardening.